What's up guys, LeopoldTheBrave here, and finally I've got a brand new death battle video for you guys. This video is going to be all about previous fighters who I want to see return to death battle someday in the future. With characters like Guts and Akuma coming back recently, I got inspired to do this topic. And there's no rules to who can and can't be on this list. As long as they've been in a previous death battle, they're allowed. Even if they just happened, like Bill Cipher. The only rule is actually for myself. If I want to put a character on this list, I have to have a reason beyond simply just wanting to see them again and thinking they're cool. Otherwise, this entire list would just be full of my personal favorites instead of combatants who could bring something new to the table a second time. So with that said, let's get to it. My top 10 most wanted returning fighters for death battle. Number 10 is Sora from Sora vs. Pit. At the time this came out, it was a really cool episode, and I was just happy to see Kingdom Hearts in death battle. But I gotta be honest, Yoda vs. Mickey really spoiled us. I've just gotta see Sora in a 3D death battle. Now this isn't me dissing sprite animation because the fight was cool, but it also did leave out a ton of Sora's stuff too. Sora mainly just used Fire, Stop, Sonic Blade, Ragnarok, and that was honestly about it. None of his curing magic, no freeze, lightning, no drive forms, no dual wielding, and Kingdom Hearts 3 introduced a ton of new attack options with the attraction rides and everything. I think it'd be very refreshing to see him again. Plus, I also think he was a bit mismatched. He and Pit don't really have much in common, they just look similar and use light. Number 9 is Raphael from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Battle Royale. And the reasoning I'm sure will surprise no one. The only one of the turtles who has come back is Leonardo, and he's come back twice. In fact, Death Battle has been pretty short on Ninja Turtle characters altogether. No Master Splinter, no Casey Jones, no Leatherhead. It's mainly just Leonardo and Shredder, so can we at least get one of the turtles? And of course I'm picking Raphael because he's my favorite. But there's an additional reason I'd love to see another turtle on Death Battle. And again, not dissing on sprite fights, I love sprite fights, but I'd really want to see one in 3D, especially after the release and success of Mutant Mayhem. With its extremely creative and unique art style, I could see the animators for this death battle being inspired to do something pretty crazy. Number 8 is Jin Kazama from Ryu vs. Jin. No, I don't just want him back because he lost. And yes, I have more reasons for wanting him back beyond just thinking he's cool and wanting to see him again. Don't get on my case. I more just want to see him again because I want him to be portrayed better. In the fight, they portrayed him as and used voice lines from the Street Fighter Cross Tekken version of Jin. A game where his incarnation was based on a very specific point in his timeline. A point in his timeline where he really wasn't himself. Aside from personality in the animation, I think he also needs to be portrayed better in the analysis. And I'm not talking about stats. No one agrees with me on Tekken stats for at least 5 years after I say something, that's just how it works. But they left out a ton of his abilities, like his telekinetic force choke thing, his barrier, his healing factor. And even ones they did mention, they didn't consider too heavy in the actual results simply because he doesn't use them regularly in gameplay. They'd be busted in gameplay, he uses them in cutscenes. I don't know why it matters where he uses them. Look, alls I'm saying is Ryu has no defense against or possible escape for a telekinetic force choke. Let's bring Jin back. Number 7 is the Scout from Tracer vs. Scout. And this is basically just a souped up version of why I want Jin back. This is like the only loss in the entire show of Death Battle that I'm actually still passionate about. First of all, his portrayal in the animation was terrible. He's known for being speedy and zipping around, but he spends most of the fight just walking slowly, taking his time and making really lame quips. And they made him a total creep towards Tracer, which is also very inaccurate. In the comics, he actually rejects someone because he only has eyes for Miss Pauling. Then in the analysis, they left out so many of his weapons, they got functions of some of his weapons wrong, they downplayed his quote-unquote best feat, he has much better ones, and they allowed Tracer to have her best feat at the time, the Sniper Dodge, which is a lot more iffy than Scout's rockets, with no other feats to her name at the time that would aid her in this battle. And on top of all of that, the episode came out less than 4 months after Overwatch released, and considering how long death battles take to make, they likely started earlier than that. This is very much a death battle that feels skewed to appeal to the hot new trendy thing and get their crowd on their side. Now pay close attention to that, I said it feels skewed, not it is skewed, I'm not making any accusations here. But judging by the like to dislike ratio of the episode, it backfired pretty hard, and unfortunately it seems TF2 is getting blamed for it, as we haven't had anything from the franchise since. So let's give them another shot, with the Scout. Number 6 is a tie between Goku and Superman from Goku vs. Superman, both 1 and 2. Both of these characters are absolute legends in verses, being pitted up against everyone imaginable. Which is why when it comes to Death Battle, it kinda sucks that they're tethered together like this. I mean, Goku did technically come back in Gogeta vs Vegito, but that's not the same, and you know it. Now, Goku vs Superman 3 is definitely going to happen in the future. Not the near future, but I can't imagine Death Battle ending without doing it. And while we wait for that to happen, it would be really nice just to see these two in regular episodes against other fighters, instead of having some grand event every time they show up. Like, you don't get it. Goku vs Lego Sun Wukong would go kinda crazy. Number 5 is Solid Snake from Solid Snake vs Sam Fisher. 99% of Death Battle combatants nowadays are measured by how many megatons, gigatons, or yotatons they can put out, how many universes they can destroy, if they can blow up the multiverse. It's extremely rare now where we get more grounded characters that aren't all about numbers and are more about technique and what they've got up their sleeve. And the recent James Bond vs John Wick got me craving more, so I want to see Solid Snake again. Snake needs to reclaim his title anyways. For over 6 seasons, he had no doubt the best death battle ever, until Saitama vs Popeye eventually overtook it. And now we have Bill vs Discord overtaking that. Snake is way too good for the bronze medal, so I want to see him return and take back what's his. Number 4 is Luke Skywalker, from Luke Skywalker vs Harry Potter. And I want him back because I feel they used him a bit too early. I mean, Kakashi vs Obi-Wan, Obito vs Vader, Yoda vs King Mickey. Even Vader vs Doctor Doom was a pretty good and fun episode. Star Wars just has a near unbeatable record on Death Battle. It's always quality. And while the original Luke vs Harry is a treasure from the past, it does stick out like a sore thumb against all the rest of the Star Wars episodes. The outdated stats, the complete mismatch against someone who Luke would absolutely stomp. Most of the fight scene was 90% Luke blocking and Harry spamming projectiles. I just have a new hope that we'll see this guy again on Death Battle, and that he'll join the SFM quality of his peers. Number 3 is Jack, from Jak and Daxter vs Ratchet and Clank. Notice how I only specified Jack. For some reason in this death battle, they said Daxter was completely useless, and it was pretty much like Jack didn't have a second teammate at all, yet he was still going up against 2 people. In reality though, Daxter can do plenty actually. He even has his own Dark Daxter form. But that's not the point. If Jack basically didn't even have a teammate because of how quote-unquote useless Daxter is, why did they stick him up against another team? Jak and Daxter vs Ratchet and Clank is a legendary, iconic matchup, but Ratchet and Clank win it really hard. I just think keeping Jak in duo matches limits who he can fight quite a lot. He should definitely try out a couple one-on-ones, but people are a bit scared to split him up with Daxter even when they consider Daxter a non-factor. And on top of that, he had one of the best fights in Season 3 and one of the best 3D fights in general. It's so creative, fun, and energetic the entire time, with all of his different weapons and transformations and eco powers. Imagine another one of those, but on the quality level of Link vs Cloud 2. Number 2 is Crash Bandicoot from Crash vs Spyro. And this choice, along with the next entry, kinda follows the same logic I had for picking Jak. Crash vs Spyro is of course an iconic match. It's even another Naughty Dog vs Insomniac one. But not only is it a complete mismatch as Spyro absolutely destroys, but it also just doesn't feel right. Spyro and Crash cross over all the time. Literally all the time. And they're always portrayed as companions. They had a little misunderstanding in the GBA crossover, but they got over that pretty quick. It's like if they had Mario fight Link. That wouldn't feel right either. But on top of all that, Crash has tons of new abilities and powers to use. And a brand new model where the expressiveness is turned up to 2000. Not to mention there's a couple errors I'm nitpicky about that they could get right next time, like Aku Aku not being able to possess those without Mojo, which is untrue, as many masks in the series have been possessing anyone they wanted before the concept of Mojo was even introduced, even artificial beings that wouldn't have Mojo. But also, in the actual fight, Crash spent most of the time running away. In a new fight, he could show off more of his abilities and have more wacky cartoon antics. Plus, he's just one of my favorites. I don't care if he wins or loses, I just want to see him again. And number 1 is Knuckles the Echidna, from Knuckles vs Donkey Kong. Knuckles is my favorite Sonic character, and no, I'm not mad he lost. Of course he should have lost this one. This is just another mismatch against an opponent who's way too powerful for him to even stand a chance, like the previous 2 choices. Only this one's turned up to 11 because it pretty much happens for the entirety of Team Sonic. Sonic vs Mario, Tails vs Luigi, which Tails should have lost, and now Knuckles vs Donkey Kong. Sonic against Mario I get, big timeless rivalry, yada yada yada, video game version of Goku vs Superman. Tails vs Luigi I kinda understand, the whole sidekick, second fiddle, little brother type thing, and nowadays Tails matches Luigi's cowardice. But Knuckles versus Donkey Kong? I guess they were rivals to their protagonist once, but do you know how many characters in fiction fit that? How many other iconic, colorful, platforming video game characters match that? It's a wide pool, and Knuckles is tethered to Mario characters? Heck, we could bring back the Crash series again and have him fight Crunch. And then of course the fight made him look like a joke. I mean, that is accurate to how he's been for a while, but come on. Knuckles is just the coolest. Let him relive his glory days for Death Battle just once. He's my favorite Sonic guy. But anyways, those were my top 10 most wanted returning characters for Death Battle. What'd you think of my list, and who do you want to return? Be sure to let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time. Leopold the Brave, out.